"Hurry up," RH hushed over his shoulder to his co-founder, Mark, and their new CFO, Barry. "We can't be late." The three hurried into the lobby of the gleaming Renaissance Tower in Dallas, Texas. It was a castle of successful corporations in the year 2000. On the elevator ride up, Barry's hands began to tremble as they rocketed skyward to the 23rd floor. The door snapped open, and with a collective sigh, the three pressed onward to the corner boardroom. Finally, John, a billion-dollar CEO, rode in like a corporate knight, an entire armada of well-suited executives in tow. And thus, RH began the presentation on why his firm would be the perfect company to acquire. He had rehearsed his words, his numbers, and his asking price, a not too shabby $50 million. Surely, he thought, there was nothing for this industry leader to pay. But the truth was, his entrepreneurial company had lost money every single year. And the savvy executives sitting across the table, they knew it. They knew that this little startup, bleeding cash but promising innovation, posed no threat to John's industry juggernaut. And that's exactly why John didn't buy that company that day. Instead, he laughed. He and his team of shrewd executives laughed poor RH, Mark, and Barry out of the room, out of the Renaissance Tower, and right out of Dallas, Texas. The three might have quit right then and there, but fortunately for all of us, they didn't. Instead, they went on to build one of the most successful media empires in the world and put John's multi-billion-dollar enterprise right out of business. Because RH is none other than Reed Hastings, the co-founder of Netflix, and John Antioco, the CEO of Blockbuster, had just made the biggest mistake of his life. I think the business term for this is oopsies. Very bad. My dramatization notwithstanding, it's so easy for us to judge this story in hindsight, isn't it? I mean, obviously, this entire situation was caused by sheer stupidity at the highest levels. But if that's true, then consider this. If John Antioco is just a big old dummy, then how could he have possibly risen to become one of the most powerful billion-dollar CEOs in America? And if Blockbuster's demise wasn't caused by idiocy, then what was it? For years, I asked myself a similar question, working with leaders from startups to corporations in our marketing agency. Why did some of our clients use our growth strategies to innovate and dominate, getting a massive return on their investment, while others never even got out of the starting gate, embroiled in politics and stuck firmly in the status quo? Well, it turns out that the answer is buried in a lesson we all learned between birth and preschool. That lesson? Be honest. Okay, so, I mean, what does that mean, right? I mean, honest could mean true, candid, direct, right? Or transparent, authentic, of course, right? But in my definition, honest in business must also mean open-minded, willing to admit fault, ready for change, and much, much more. See, John Antioco and his merry group of executives, they didn't bankrupt Blockbuster because they were stupid. No. It's because they were dishonest about the rise of streaming media and decline of DVDs, so they got left behind. They failed the first of 3 levels of honesty in a framework that just so happens to explain how honesty leads to business profitability. Yeah, there is a connection. The first level is getting honest with what I call the community. In other words, what's happening in our world or in our industry? How are the tastes and preferences of society changing and evolving? because we consumers are changing and evolving. We're making more informed decisions as more and more information becomes available. Now, of course, not all of that information out there is true. Fake news it's a big problem, and it seems like it's everywhere, doesn't it? I mean, it's in our media, our politics, and of course our corporate scandals. I'm sure you can think of a few recent examples of those, right? It's enough to make us all wonder, where does all this deceit come from? Well, to get at the inner workings of our dishonest selves, allow me to paint you a picture of 4-year-old and much more adorable Peter Kozodoy, who had an unusual hobby. See, while most children found joy in building castles out of toy blocks, I found joy hurtling at them like a beat-up Chevy in a demolition derby and watching as those beautiful creations got blasted apart into 100 different pieces. I mean, it's a talk on honesty, right? Okay, people, it's a safe space here, all right? Whatever. Anyway, okay, and this was genuinely a surprise to me. No one else found my hobby as exciting as I did. So inevitably, at the end of the day, I would find myself in preschool prison for this, followed by a visit from my very patient mother. And most importantly, when she would ask me, Peter, did you do this? Honestly, I would say, I don't know. I mean, once they were there and then they were gone, it all happened so fast. I mean, I really don't remember. I don't know. Yeah. Well, ultimately, she got the evidence that she needed, which was really not good for me. But anyway, the point is, people, we are all a bunch of no good, dirty liars, myself very much included. From birth, we know how to lie in order to get what we want, and we do it all the time. Sometimes to others, but mostly to ourselves. The only difference now is that in our newly transparent world, our inherent dishonesty is getting in the way of achieving success. Soon, we won't be able to fake it. The truth, crowdsourced from smartphones, eyewitnesses, and verifiable sources, will always rise to the top. Tomorrow's empowered employees will break corporate scandals as soon as they're detected, and that gap in which leaders choose to lie in order to save their own paychecks, that gap is closing fast. In fact, in a recent study by Just Capital, the research organization found that companies that exhibit generally honest business practices actually earn an 8% higher return on equity than their peers. 8%. By the way, that's also while paying people more, polluting the environment less, and even giving more to charity. I mean, it makes sense, right? I mean, with better information, we consumers can make better decisions about the companies we choose to do business with. Pretty soon, dishonest companies won't stand a chance, nor will dishonest people. I mean, what about all those Wall Street types, huh? What a bunch of liars they are, right? Or are they? Take, for instance, Ray Dalio, the billionaire founder of Bridgewater Associates, the largest hedge fund in the world with almost $200 billion in assets under management. Today, they're the untouchable industry leader, but it wasn't always that way. Before growing his empire, the young, brilliant Dalio went on national television to warn everyone about a severe economic recession that was coming in 1982. Well, 82 came and 82 went. No recession. Not even close. That very public mistake almost ended his career, and this now billionaire had to borrow a few $1,000s from his dad just to keep his new family afloat. After that, he vowed to never be that wrong again. After that, he built a culture of radical truth and radical transparency, in which smart people could be honest with one another, seek truth instead of comfort, and ensure that facts would always overcome personal opinion, bias, and ego. In other words, Dalio capitalized on the second level of honesty, getting honest with and about the others around you. And when you do that, when you work together to figure out what's true, instead of ignoring honesty and relying on the boss's personal whims, magical things can happen, like billions and billions of dollars. This makes perfect sense. I mean, with literally billions of dollars on the line, there's no room for anything but honesty. And yet, how many organizations suffer because the leader stifles honesty in favor of personal opinion? So a few years ago, a couple of smart professors conducted a poll of 75,000 people throughout the world, asking what qualities in a leader would inspire you to willingly follow them. Guess what the number one trait was? Honesty. Not intelligence, not caring, not vision, no, honesty. You know, getting honest about what's going on in the world around you, honest about the others around you, I mean, this is not rocket science, right? And yet, it can create stratospheric results in business, and even in, of all things, pizza. Oh yes, doughy, saucy, deliciously profitable pizza. In 2009, the then chief marketing officer of Domino's Pizza, Russell Weiner, created an interesting concept. It was simple. J. Patrick Doyle, the brand new CEO, would go on national television and tell the world that Domino's Pizza's pizza sucks. This, Doyle announced, pointing at a soggy pizza, this is not acceptable. Bryce in Minnesota, you shouldn't have to get this from Domino's. We're better than this. Well, not to ruin the surprise, but what happened next was a 2,600% stock return to shareholders over the next 8 years, growing 16 times faster than the S&P 500. And just as a reminder, in case you've all forgotten, they got a 2,500% return by telling everyone that their product was terrible. What? I mean, how does this happen, right? Well, the folks at Domino's looked around and they noticed that back in 2009, people were losing their homes. CEOs were begging for bailouts, and Americans were feeling like there was no one telling the truth. And in the context of that community, Domino's heard from the others, its customers, and it leaned into that feedback, good, bad, and very ugly. And then, unlike so many companies, Domino's didn't turn away from the truth, no. Instead, they got brutally honest with and about themselves. They faced their faults head on, and they promised to change. Change they did, improving not only their product, but also transforming their entire business into a pizza powerhouse that didn't just deliver, but over-delivered, lifting their stock from $11 to $300 in almost a straight line, just by being honest. Hey, you want to cling to your beliefs and biases and avoid honesty? Go ahead. But every second you wait, your lunch is getting gobbled up by competitors who are willing to be honest on all three levels. Because guess what? This is the secret formula to innovation. Kind of. It's actually incomplete. Here's how honesty really works. When you get honest with what's going on in the community, and you get honest with and about the others around you, your bosses, colleagues, customers, and then you get honest with yourself, with your own biases and subjective beliefs as a leader, in that instant, you've changed. Honest you is different. Honest you is willing to change the others around you, to enable the innovators and ignore the status quo detractors. And that's how you can bend the community toward you and create industry-dominating results. This hourglass of honesty, this is the key that unlocks the door to innovation. Corporate leaders at Quicken Loans, Sprint, Berkshire Hathaway, and many more have unlocked the secret. Innovation's not magic. It's just that innovation lives in a place where few dare to go. In the vacuum that's left when presumption and ego are no longer there. And it turns out, This same framework applies to your personal life as well. Because we lie. We block our own greatness with bullshit. We lie about what's going on in the world and how we feel about it. We lie when we judge each other based on our own personal biases. We lie about what makes us happy and about what we really, truly want in this life. But imagine, for a moment, that you walk out of here as the honest version of yourself. You can. And here's what will happen next. When you get honest about what's going on in your world, and you get honest with and about the people you've chosen to surround yourself with at work and at home, and you get honest with yourself, who you really are, what you really want, you will change your life. Listen. It's up to you if you want to be honest or not. But if you want to achieve greatness as a leader in your business and your life, now you know the best policy. And all it takes is honesty. Thank you, everyone.